When it comes to marketing the products of our ranch, there are some basic things that we need to do, but sometimes we get so busy doing those things that we forget to actually sell the things that we're marketing.
We can get so busy marketing the bulls that we forget to actually sell the bulls. Like we forget to say, this bull will work for your cows, and here is why.
Today on episode 419 of the Working Cows podcast, we're going to talk to Karoline Bohannan about that, as well as the importance of developing a relationship with those who we are targeting with our marketing.
Very rarely could you send a catalog to someone completely out of the blue, never call them on the phone, and they show up and spend $10,000 at your sale. Like, that doesn't happen anymore.
Knowing what a win looks like.
Because even when my customers are selling bulls for $1,000 or $1,500 more than they did last year, some of them didn't clearly define success, and so they always wish it was more.
And the power of authenticity to really develop a long-term relationship.
But it is a little scary. If you've never talked about the flaws in some of the cattle that you raise, sharing about that for the first time can be scary, but it's only going to build like the know, like, and trust. And when they do that, people will become what we call lifelong customers. They will really come back year after year.
All that and more on this episode of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Remedy Animal Solutions and the Wineglass Ranch.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag Studios. And today, very excited to welcome back Karoline Bohannan. She is one of the leaders there at the KRose Company, a great company that does a lot of marketing to help rural businesses be successful. So just wait a minute before you click pause, before you find something else to listen to. Why don't you just put the phone in your pocket and listen, because we are going to talk about marketing bull sales on this episode, but we're going to, it applies to all rural businesses. These are ideas, strategies, and tricks that apply to all rural businesses. And we'll share that conversation with Karoline with you right after these words from our sponsor today, Remedy Animal Solutions. Remedy Animal Solutions can help you transition to a drug and vax-free operation. Their natural and organically qualified homeopathic formulas meet customer demands for a clean meat source. Their formulas are more effective, less expensive, and safe to handle while easily integrating into your ranching operation. Their Pro Vitality formula improves mineral absorption, reducing tie-ups. Worm effectively without chemicals. Eliminate respiratory challenges, and enhance breeding success, diminishing open cows. No need for needles or antibiotics. Foot rot, pink eye, lice, lump jaw, retained placenta, all can be treated without drugs, with their first aid kit providing immediate homeopathic solutions on hand. They have formulas for cattle, sheep, horses, swine, poultry, and bees. Visit their website, remedyanimalsolutions.com, or call to get a personalized protocol for your business at 406-777-7375. You can also find links in the show notes page today to 2 previous episodes discussing Remedy Animal Solutions and what they have to offer for your operation. Karoline, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you today kind of about this idea of bull sales psychology, and I'm a novice at it. I just know that there's people that pay attention to those kinds of things, and kind of wanted to look at some of the ways that people are thinking about it, and to maximize the return on the investment. So let's dive in there. What are some of the things that you're paying attention to with regard to this issue?
So when we think about hosting a production sale, there are a lot of kind of like internal challenges going on right now that I'm hearing from customers. So the first is I think COVID really provided the opportunity to consider moving to a fully online sale. So before COVID, that wasn't really a thing as much as it was like in 4-H animals, stuff like that, where people were buying from a huge distance. And now it seems that anyone can have a fully online sale. And there are pros and cons, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those on any sale decision. So I think that's kind of the first internal dilemma is, do I even have a sale where I shake hands with people? The second piece are the animals that are available at the sale coming through a ring? So we're seeing less and less animals actually enter a ring, more and more animals seen on TV. And so I think it really kind of impacts when you think about those three decisions. Those should be decisions that producers are considering every single year for their situation, but also some of it has to do with consistency and what you've done in the past. And it would be hard to go fully online and then back to in person and then back to online. Like, you got to have some consistency. But when we think about the psychology of a sale, there is something to be said when some guy's on a microphone chanting, because that is their job, is to get the hands to be raised one or two more times. I mean, I could listen to Joe Goggins, until I'm blue in the face. He might say the same thing or similar things at every sale, but one of the things that makes him unique and makes an auctioneer unique, a good auctioneer, is they know the crowd. And when I've been really paying attention to the auctioneers that are excelling, that really add that excitement to that live sale piece, they will say stuff like, oh, they're the mayor of Moore, Montana. And that means that they know their crowd. And so if you're going to go or have an in-person auction, that person is so important. It's not just the chanting ability or the ability to catch bids. It's that human relationship that I think we got a little away from in the production sale side. And so when you're considering kind of the psychology of what works best for you, there are just so many factors. And the other thing we're seeing right now is people trying to figure out where to host sales. So a lot of people are moving sales to their own operation, which again, pros and cons to both. But as someone who sits in a sale barn a lot, there is something to be said about being able to see the ring well, being able to see the animals well. And one of the things I'm noticing on ranch hosted sales is the first row of the bleachers is usually the same floor as the bulls come in. And so you're immediately looking, if you sit in that very first one or two rows, the perspective and the perception is different than if you look at a sale barn. So if you look at a sale barn, almost always is the ring kind of in the ground a little bit. And so even that very first row is up a couple inches compared to what we're seeing at ranch sales. And it's just something to think about, because a lot of who sits in that first 2 or 3 rows are going to be your ideal customer, a man, woman in their 60s or 70s, right? Who we know is the primary decision maker on operations. They're not getting up high to where they can have a better view of it, meaning they're probably going to be able to study the feet a little better when they're nice and close like that, but they might be missing some other overall views that you get if you are in a traditional sale barn where the ring is kind of in the ground a little bit.
So would your recommendation then, or some of the things to consider then be, do we make that first row higher or lower, or is that going to be something that people should be thinking about? How are we going to format this?
Yeah, if you can kind of make that first row a little bit, up a little bit. The other option is, even if you can't, is having a TV. So if you have the bulls coming in, having a TV that allows that same perspective for everyone, it can be on the sides, that's fine, or it can be up high, but adding that view so that they can also see that view. Because think about it, if you're on the very first row, first or 2 rows, and you're level with the arena, a bull comes in, kind of throws up a little sawdust. It's like hard to see, and you want to be close to the action, and especially a lot of the ideal customers who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like, they're going to be sitting down there for whatever reason, but you want to make sure that they can still really study the animal. And also, you want to make sure that they feel comfortable, that they can see other bidders. So that is something to think about too, is you don't want to create any type of angles where someone could get in a position where they can't tell if someone is actually bidding against them.
Yep. And so on that TV, is it going to be a live feed of what's happening in the ring, or is it going to be some like kind of B-roll of a video of this bull from a previous day?
That's what I'd recommend, is the B-roll where it's like their lot video. That's the terminology. So lot number 3, the whole entire video of lot number 3, that's playing, even if the bull is in the ring. One, I think it helps people who want a different view. I think it helps people who maybe, sometimes you sit in a sale barn and you have like a stupid pole or something there, and you don't even think about it. And then the place is packed, and just a couple different things that even if you have the bulls come in the ring, which is becoming less and less common nowadays, more people are going to video only. But I think if you do have the bulls come in the ring, it is really valuable to have a video of them somewhere playing. And think about, can you play that video in the lobby? Are there people who are going to be late and wondering what bull you're on? Or is there people who are going to be still eating lunch when you get started because they maybe aren't interested until a few lots? Like, how can you make sure that you engage everyone in that sale atmosphere, especially if people have driven to your operation, driven to a sale barn, they're there to enjoy the day, make sure that they can see the sale.
Do you think then that there is a clear winner when it comes to online, fully online, hybrid, live streamed people in the sale barn at the ranch? I mean, is it just kind of, you've got to pick your poison, you got to pick what you want to do, and then maximize all of its benefits and minimize its drawbacks, or is there a clear winner in your mind?
There's not a clear winner. There's a clear requirement. The clear requirement is, no matter what, you have to have an ability for someone to bid who's not there. Mm-hmm. In a trustworthy way, whether that be a conference line, whether that be reps that they trust, whether that be the internet, whatever it may be, you have to have the ability that someone can bid if they can't be there in person, because our worlds are getting much busier and people are getting, it's so easy for someone to overlook a sale or double book themselves. And so you have to have the ability for them to have a trustworthy way to bid on the lots that they're interested in without being there in person. So that is a requirement, whether you have an online only sale, whether you have an in-person at your place or at a sale barn, you got to get that absentee piece not dialed in. And I see a lot of people who have done that poorly. And I hear a lot of feedback like, man, I would never give any of their, reps a bid, or I don't know who to give my bid to. I had a guy one time call and ask me to buy a high selling bull at a sale. And he said, could you put it under your name? Because I don't want the reps to know that I know they ran me up last year. Like, there is a lot of ways to who you pick kind of on your marketing team, both the internet company and the reps that you're putting in the catalog, that should have some significant consideration for how you want to do business. And I was actually at a sale just the other day, and I called my dad and I said, I'm worried that some of these bulls might not sell. And he said, well, is the rancher going to put a bid in on them? It was an online only sale. And I said, I don't think so. Do you think I should recommend that? And he said, no. He said, I first would stick with integrity. And he was like, so the integrity piece to me is not bidding on those bulls and letting them naturally get bids, which they did. It was a fine day. But it was really interesting because he was recommending that to us, but you have to want to make sure that everyone on your sale team has the same feeling about that. And so, those are things to ask your online company. Like, if someone gives you $9,000, are you going to take it to $9, or are you going to sell the bull to them at $85? Same with all your reps. Make sure that you can accurately talk about how your reps, how your team is going to handle absentee bids.
We talked early on about a fully online sale, and you mentioned that there's pros and cons. So let's talk about some of those. Let's talk about the pros and the cons.
So talk about the pros. It's much cheaper. Significantly cheaper. That you don't have to get the barn ready. You don't have to be ready. It's a platform.
You don't have to feed everybody.
Absolutely. You don't have to feed everyone. You don't have to have ringmen. You don't have to have an auctioneer. all of these expenses.
You mean those people that show up to the bull sale to help run and aren't there for free?
Yeah, right? So I think an online sale, when you look budget to budget, it's almost a no-brainer when you look at it that way. The problem is you almost have to market more, because what you lose is you lose that FOMO of the real life, the chanting, the getting caught up, the come on, just one more, ask her one more time.
Don't look at her, look at me.
Yeah. Tell him he can bid one more. Like that piece, you miss that. And that does add significant revenue to your sale. And so when you don't have that, you have to add something else. And so you have to make sure that you almost market more for those type of sales, and they have more pre-planning. The other thing with an online sale that I think can be really intimidating or discouraging, it does not matter how far out you talk about your sale, how fast you open it. Everyone is going to bid within the last hour to 2 hours of it closing. You might get some early bids, then you're going to go through a lull, and then they're all going to show up. And especially if you do racehorse style, your sale's going to go on for several hours after the sale. And I think when you're looking at, day 2 or the morning of your online sale close, and it's been 2 days and you have a bid on 10% of the lots, it can be really discouraging. And so it's kind of like, don't let that sale be open too long. I think 3 days maybe is even too long. I tell people like 72 hours, 48 hours, like let people get on and then close it. But just know, majority of your bids are going to come in last minute. And it's also really interesting. I always recommend that you racehorse close all the lots. So if someone puts a bid in at lot number 5, it restarts them all. Because what I've noticed in human behavior is people will show up late. So even after the sale technically closed, you will get bids on lots that did not have bids before the close. So don't close the lots that don't have interest. Close them all in a racehorse style. So you give people the opportunity who misjudge a time zone, they're running late, that if there's a lot that's really going back and forth, they can still go in and put a bid on another lot.
Yeah, and so the racehorse style is, I think what you just said, that any bid on any lot keeps all of them open. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes. And how fast you close them is really up to you. Most people do 5 minutes. Some people do 3 minutes. I will tell you there's 2 types of bidders on an online sale. They crack me up. One bids the moment someone else bids. So you'll get 10 or 15 seconds and they'll refresh it again. One person waits to the very last 10 seconds and they will redo the whole thing. And so you'll think, okay, this is it. Like I'm either winning this lot or my customer sale's about to be over. 10, 9, 8, 4 minutes again.
I like to bid right away just to say like, hey, I'm not going anywhere. You just keep bidding. I'm going to be here with you. Even if I'm not, even if it was my last bid.
Yeah. Human behavior is so interesting in that way. Yeah. There's like 2 very clearly, clear types of bidders.
Yeah. And now I have to shake my strategy up because everybody knows my secret. But no, I'm just, I appreciate that. So I think that no matter what you're doing, fully online or live in the ring, videos are going to be important, like real good videos, even they're going to be important for a lot of reasons. One of them that comes to my mind is because those bulls are, even if they're running through a ring, they're in a limited area to move. And so you don't really get a sense of their locomotion and you don't get a look at their feet and all those kinds of things. So talk to me about that, some of the ways that videos need to be produced and some of those things.
Let's just say that not all bull videos are created the same. And I think a lot of times we see really bad bull videos. I actually, in fact, was scrolling social media and I thought it was my phone and I went to wipe and I'm like, oh no, the video is just dirty. Like I can't tell what's going on. But video is so important. It's going to become even more important as we have kind of artificial intelligence come into the photo editing world more. I've already started to see some really heavy edited and falsified, I guess is the right word, photos where you make a top line smoother, you add some, depth, you stretch a bull out. Like I'm already starting to see some of those. And so as we get more technology that's easier, I think the integrity of photos is going to get shaky. And so I always recommend a video because obviously with AI, we are going to be able to adapt videos. But right now, you cannot purposely stretch a bull out on a video with most common technology. And so when we think about the video, what you really get a good look at is the structure. And that is something that can be changed in a photo. And just how they set the bull up, right? So structure is really important. And people love to watch videos. The thing that I always am surprised about is how often we have video media shared to us. So think about when you pull up to get gas. They play a video to, like, we can't even stand there and pump our own fuel without a video nowadays. And so having good videos allows people to study the bull, study the makeup, study how, it travels, how it comes to a stop, all of that. And you can't hide its weaknesses as much. Like if it gets really soft over the top when it comes to a stop, you're probably going to see that in the video. Like you're probably going to see those things show up. And so it just allows people to see the real, true vision of the bull and what it would look like if they were there in person. And of course, people want to come in person, but if they can't, this is the next best thing. One of the things though is it's not helpful if the bull's just running like crazy. And you see some videos like that where it's like they just took the first 30 seconds of the film and the bull's going psycho. And you're like, okay, so either the bull, it has a bad attitude or, whatever happened, but like it's better to just not show that than to have a bad video. Also, the weather is really challenging because especially with black-hided cattle, snow, our cameras naturally want to pick up snow. And so they are going to capture the snowflakes. And what you do is you lose the dimension on those bulls. And so you want to make sure that you are still seeing the dimension on the bulls, even if it's really white. Like you're going to have to do some different things to make sure that you get a good video. But I've seen probably more poor videos this year than ever before. I don't know why. I don't know if weather made people's schedules rushed so that they were just filming whenever they could and there, was not as many good films. But this is the first year. I've had several clients who've never videoed before, and this is the first year that they actually, they videoed, and their clients are really happy. They're like, thanks so much. Saves me a trip to come look at them early or whatever the case may be. But you need to have a video. The goal is 30 seconds. It's always so interesting because DV auctions want some 30 seconds. And so that's kind of where everyone sticks. I like a little bit longer footage, especially for some of the feature lots. I really want to see those bulls move and get out and travel, but 30 seconds is a sweet spot. In an ideal world, you'd see both sides. And then it really comes down to personal preference, how much straw you have on the ground. You don't want to show a bull slipping. And this can be really challenging, especially in my neck of the woods this time of year. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes they slipped versus a structured design, but you got to have some straw for the most part if you have a spring sale, just because of the weather and what the ground looks like. And then you also have to decide, do you want to be patient enough that the bull does a full 180 and you get to see front and back? Most guys say no. Most guys do not want to take that long because naturally the bull's going to turn towards you. And the moment that you go up there to help the bull turn around, they react unnaturally. Even if they just stop for a minute or take one step to the side, it's less of the natural movement that they do when they're walking up and down the backdrop. And so those a lot of times get cut out. So you just see the side, each side. I like to have 3 sides show to give the best ability to look at that animal and study. But you should make sure that if you're paying for videos, it's a long day. It is quite the project, that the videos are good. And if you can't get a good video of a bull, just skip it. It's better to have no video than a video of one that, maybe got spooked and is running a little bit crazy. Or one of my biggest pet peeves is one of the bulls that just stands. And I'm sure you've seen that in a video where you're like, is the video frozen? Is it going? And it's a 30-second video and 20 seconds of it, the bull just stood there. I don't think that really helps your marketing either.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, the Wineglass Ranch. 1,400 head of Wineglass Ranch Easy Keepers are coming up for sale at Oglala Livestock Auction Market on Wednesday, March 26th. Wineglass's proven grazing genetics mean these cows will work for you, not the other way around. This sale will be a rare opportunity and a complete age dispersion of coming 5-year-olds to 9-year-olds. 1,000 of these will calve for 25 days starting mid-April and 400 calve for 25 days starting in early May. If you want more information on getting your hands on the Wineglass Easy Keepers at Oglala Livestock Auction Market, Wednesday, March 26th, and across the Fruited Plain online, you can go to workingcows.net and find links to wineglassranchinc.com. When, in some of the ways that we see bull sales shifting, when do you anticipate, or what are some good strategies for letting people see the bulls in the flesh?
Encouraging them and rewarding them to come in person. So $500 off, or 10 free straws of semen if you come look at them. I've also seen people do giveaways where they'll put everyone's name in a hat. Like whatever you can do to get people out there, I think really helps, because there's nothing that sells bulls better than when the producer has an in-person conversation with the customer who's interested in the bulls. And nowadays we can get so busy marketing the bulls that we forget to actually sell the bulls. Like we forget to say, this bull will work for your cows and here is why. Like we forget that piece. We get so busy calling the photographer, the clipper, the videographer, the semen tester, the pap tester, the ringman, the auctioneer, the lunch ladies. You can make 30 calls and never sell one bull to one rancher.
What are some of the minimums in marketing? Like in our world today, as it stands, you're going to be in the bull business. You need to do these things. What are some of those things that are absolute can't miss, non-negotiables?
Well, I've seen some people do some very limited things, and in an environment like this, they can sell a bull. But let's talk about 5 years ago. You have to have your bull's DNA tested if you're going to sell purebred bulls. Like, you got to get the data right. I have seen lots of catalogs and watched the studies of them. Bulls with all of the information sell better than bulls that are waiting on DNA. So you got to get that kind of back end stuff done. I don't think you have to send a catalog. This is one of my kind of soapboxes. We like to send a catalog as a first point of contact. Like, hey, look at my bulls. We get hundreds of catalogs. I'm sure you do too. It's like, I don't even have time to flip through all of these. And they, unfortunately, all start to look the same after a while, right? And I don't mean that like bad design. I just mean like there's bull photos and there's EPDs. And after a while, like if you don't know the who behind it, the bulls matter less. And so I think that you should only send a catalog to people who have newly requested it or have been past buyers, and you should send the rest digitally. One, your catalog is your most expensive piece of marketing. You could send them lots of postcards, like 25 postcards for the same price as you could a catalog. So you might as well reach out to them in different ways. And so I think you have to have a way that they can see the offering, see that, be able to rank the bulls in their preferences. I do think you have to have a website. And I know a lot of people say, no one looks at a website. They do look at a website. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be 10 pages, but you have to own some space on the internet. The other thing is you have to talk about your sale frequently. And so the most common thing is people get too close to their sale date and they haven't really talked about it, and people already have plans or are busy or overlook it. And so one of the things we always tell our marketing customers is we want them to book 6 months out. So by 6 months, we want some of that design work to be already started, because what sells bulls is consistency. They know and like who's selling the bulls. They care about the people and they want to see the offering. Very rarely could you send a catalog to someone completely out of the blue, never call them on the phone, and they show up and spend $10,000 at your sale. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. And so you got to build that relationship. The other thing that I always tell people is you got to do photos or videos. If you can only do one, do videos. And then you have to decide what success looks like. I think that piece is missed a lot, because even when my customers are selling bulls for $1,000 or $1,500 more than they did last year, some of them didn't clearly define success, and so they always wish it was more. And so I'm always like, when you start marketing your sale, what does success look like? What will you be happy with? Because if we don't know the goal, you're going to feel like you're chasing the end of the world constantly, and it's going to be very discouraging, not only for you, but your crew. And especially if you have kids involved, for them to hear, we sold more bulls than we normally sell. We averaged 1,000 or 1,500 more, and I'm still disappointed. That can be very frustrating when you have a year like this. So setting really clear goals, communicating those goals with your wholesale staff so everyone knows what you're aiming for.
And you mentioned earlier on the ideal customer. And how do you determine that? And because I think probably the best idea, spend 80% of your marketing dollars marketing to 20% of your audience, and those are your ideal customers. So how are you going to go about determining who that is?
So your ideal customers, when you look, if you've sold bulls in the past, these are the guys that come every single year, raise their hand. And I think a lot of times when we think about ideal customers, automatically we think about volume buyers. You don't necessarily need a volume buyer. You need that guy that sits in there that's going to buy 1 or 2 bulls and he's going to bid on 30. He's the guy that's really increasing and changing the sale. And so you really want to cater to those guys and women, people who show up to every single sale, raise their hand, and are consistent supporters of your program. And they have a clear communication. If they have a problem with a bull, they're calling you. And that's really like an open feedback relationship. What are you looking for? What sires do you like? Do you have any recommendations? Do you like the weaning weight? Do you like how the bulls are finished? Like, you really want that open conversation. But the other thing to think about is you have to see what your need is for the sale. So there's kind of 3 needs. 1, you have a bull or 2 bulls that you want to blow out of the water. So do you want to sell a bull to a stud operation or for the highest you've ever sold it? That goal looks so different than I need to sell 10 or 15 more bulls this year. Very different goals, very different marketing strategies. The other would be to find a kind of a bottom feeder, a volume buyer who spends this year 35 to 45, but's going to buy 10 to 15 bulls. And we'll just kind of take the bulls that maybe there's less interest in, and they'll raise their hand a lot, and they're going to rack up a trailer load. And so you have to decide what your sale is missing, and you have to spend your marketing dollars appropriately. And I think a lot of times people, they just say, well, I want to have a good sale. And it can be really challenging to figure out who your ideal customer is if that's your goal. So if you think about, if you want to have a bull or 2 that sells 30 to 100,000, your ideal customer in marketing for that is stud operations and people related to that, people who sell semen. Whether that be a private guy who's going to buy it, another seed stock producer, that's who your ideal customer for that sale would be. Is like, you got to be calling them, you got to be showing up, you got to be getting them to come look at your bull, like all of that. If you need a volume guy, you got to probably find those by connecting with either the sale barn owner who's selling 10, 15 loads of calves, who really wants consistency, who wants some half brothers, something like that, and really figuring out that ideal customer. If you want them to buy 10 or 15 bulls, right away, we can all picture what that person looks like pretty much, right? I mean, that's a very different customer than someone who buys 1 or 2. Or if you just need to sell more bulls, you need 30 guys in there who need to buy 1 bull. And so what does that person look like? And so determining your goal and then picking the ideal customer based on that. The other thing too is you kind of have to cater to the current customer while thinking about the next 10 years. And so I think a lot of times we get hung up in, we have to do print ads, we have to do catalogs because my ideal customer is 50, 60, or 70. Absolutely. Your ideal customer today is that. Your ideal customer in 10 years is the next generation. So where can you reach them? Because they are more likely to make a change and find a new bull supplier or seed stock supplier than the current generation. And so they're on social media. They are texting. They are watching TikToks. They're watching YouTube. They're on their computer a lot more than the generation that's 50, 60, 70 years old. And so you have to always be thinking about what's next, because I unfortunately have had customers who've really just focused on like the current generation. And then they'll call me and say like, well, 5 of my customers passed away. Like that equals 30 bulls. How do I replace that? And it's almost like that's a little too late. Like we should have been thinking about how to reach the next generation and encourage them to make a change and come and look at our offering well before we now don't have enough buyers.
Would you say then that like our next 5 years of clients, we're going to be finding them through analog means, maybe even going to the sale barn and watching sales of who's selling what and connecting with them through those channels? And then maybe the next 10 years after that, we're going to find those people through digital means? It's not going to be that clean, but those are kind of maybe helpful ways of thinking about it.
Yes. I think we've kind of forgot the belly up marketing, where you show up in person and shake their hand. I think we've forgotten that piece a little bit, just in all types of marketing, but especially in the cattle world, because we assume that people know who we are. We assume that they've heard about our sale. We assume that they know the genetics and they're making the choice to buy somewhere else. That's not always the case. It's so interesting because I live in a community that we have a lot of really good genetics near us. And my dad always says it's one of the best reasons to buy calves out of that area is because we have Sitz and KG and Stevenson's and Thousand Hills and Leachman's and all of these Angus producers like within 100 miles. And we just had a sale at the local sale barn the other day. And I said to my dad, I didn't even know they had bulls. He said, me neither. They've had a sale for 5 years. They live 2 miles from us. We didn't even know they had a sale. And when you think about that, like, I think sometimes we just assume that everyone knows what we have to do. And there's a lot to being said to showing up to other sales, to shaking hands with people, to showing up to the sale barn, even agriculture events. Like, show up to your College of Ag football game. Like, stuff like that, and just getting in front of people is really, really helpful nowadays when you want to sell bulls. And then also that digital piece, it's never going to go away. I know there's a love-hate relationship with it, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to have enough touch points that people want to exchange money with you. I think the saying now is it takes over 20 times of someone to hear about you before they would ever consider exchanging money with you. And that's like a low-level purchase. And today we're talking about an average bull is going to cost $6,500, and so the catalog doesn't count as 20 touch points. It's technically one touch point. And a print ad is one touch point. And so how can you get more touch points in? Social media is a really easy way to do that. In person can be an easier way to do that. More touch points in that they recognize who you are. They know what you do. And people want to buy bulls from people they like and that they trust. And so just making yourself more available and also showing a little bit behind the scenes. We are a little bit more skeptical nowadays. We want to see how the bulls are raised. We want to see why you make the decisions, like those kind of things. And I think years ago it was like, just give me a good bull and I'll raise my hand. We want a little bit more of the backstory now. And so when we do that, that naturally leads to social media because we can tell the story and we can be a little bit more transparent about why we're making the decisions we're making. The other thing to know is it's good that your bulls are not for everyone. And I think that's a really hard concept, is to think about either a neighbor or a friend buying bulls somewhere else. Like if you were raising a bull that could go to every commercial operation, you would have no advantage in the market. Like your advantage is who you are, what you believe in, the genetics you like, and how you finish your bulls. Like be proud of that and know that there are enough customers out there to find and to have a sale and sell those bulls, but don't try to appease and appeal to everyone. And it's okay if someone says, I'm not interested, or I'm going to switch breeds, or whatever it may be, but know that with the right marketing, you can find enough customers to sell your bulls. But that does lead me to say one more thing. In particular, this year, we are seeing less bulls selling. And it's been a conversation I've been having with some customers is the bottom fourth or fifth of their offering has less demand than ever. I'm not saying they're bad bulls. What I'm saying is people are realizing that if they're going to pay, I think right now the average has to be in the 6 to 7 range, kind of over all the breeds. If they're going to pay that, they want what they consider part of your top offering. And so that last bottom fourth or bottom fifth, again, bottom has nothing to do with the quality, only when I compare in your offering, has less demand than ever. So people are actually selling more bulls this year than they have in the past, even though their averages are higher. We're catching up with the lack of cows. We're catching up with all those things. And also, if someone's like, if I'm going to spend $6,000, I'm going to make sure I like the bull.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know how many times in a row I've recently referenced this post, but since just 20 years ago, we're selling, there are 4.5 million less cows walking in the pastures than there were 20 years ago, but we are producing 400 million more pounds of beef than we were, in the past. And so, I mean, the efficiency of the cow is higher now, and so the herd doesn't have to be as big as it was. So that means we're probably going to run fewer cows and bulls as a result. So I think it's something that we got to continue to think about and tweak and consider how we're going to respond to that, right?
Yeah. And I think most of my customers, could have sold 10% less bulls than what they did and still been really happy with the day. Even if they were happy, it's like buyers are getting a little bit pickier. There are more options on the table. And so they really want to like what they're buying. And they do like what they're buying. But that means some of the ones that are slower maturing, didn't feed as efficiently, got in a fight with another bull and kind of looked a little rough. Like all of those are bulls that maybe end up at home. And I think in the future, we can learn to just cull them a little bit harder.
Yeah. I've been in a podcasting course for the last few months. And one of the things that the guy that's teaching the course is constantly saying is that no podcast is better by leaving every minute of the conversation in. Every podcast gets better when you cut out 15 to 20% of the original recording. And that's really hard for me. I haven't gotten there yet. I probably need to find somebody else to edit my podcast and just let them decide what stays anyways. But I think it's probably the same in a lot of industries, and bull sales being probably also one of those industries where you probably would have as good or better results if you just left the bottom whatever percentage out and said, we're going to sell the best of the best that we have. And maybe we're going to grind the others and sell them as hamburger or something, but we're going to do something else with the others and still capitalize. They're not just going to go to the sale barn, but we're still going to capitalize on those, but we're going to do something else.
And I think that's a great marketing point too. I always tell people, be transparent. Why did that bull not make it to sale day? Tell them. Make sure they know what your internal parameters are to get that bull across the board, because we do see operations where it feels as if there are no parameters, and a lot of them have huge sales. And so I think allowing the customers to know that not every bull calf that hits the ground is going to show up in the sale. And this is how we do our cuts. And this is why we cut them, is because we want these bulls to be bulls that we would breed to our cows. And so all of those is just great marketing content, but it is a little scary. If you've never talked about the flaws in some of the cattle that you raise, sharing about that for the first time can be scary, but it's only going to build like the know, like, and trust. And when they do that, people will become what we call lifelong customers. They will really come back year after year.
And the interesting thing, maybe unique to the agricultural industry, to build not only just lifelong customers, but generational customers, and I'm sure that's a reality in the bull world where people have been doing business with multiple generations. And now we've got third generation bull seller, doing business with third generation rancher. And so I think it's worth the investment, right?
Absolutely. The other thing too is I think that's always the goal, right? Is that you can still have a good product for the next generation that matches their goals. But one of the hangups that I hear a lot in the internal meetings of the seed stock producers is they're tempted to not make a change, tempted to not kind of go after their passion because they don't want to lose customers. And I always feel like it is better and wiser to do what you really love, to take your operation down the path that lights you up, rather than not making any changes, trying to secure and maintain those lifelong customers. And so it's this really interesting balancing act. But as each generation comes back, they're going to want to tweak or ebb or flow something that maybe looks a little different. And it's okay if those changes mean that you lose a customer because you might gain 2 or 3 more.
One of the things that I think is important to talk about too in the realm of digital marketing is kind of just that strategy of digital marketing, and talk about like the idea of ClickFunnels and some of those things, because I think that's a way to attract your ideal customer that you don't necessarily know who that is at this moment, but they're going to be somebody that will fit in with your strategy.
Yes, email lists, something I push very heavily. So in the industry, you'll hear it talked about as an email list or text messaging marketing. So there's kind of 2 things to think about here. One, there's a lot of marketing companies out there that want you to pay them to email their list. That is not a recommendation I have. I recommend that you build your own list. And when we think about building our own list, there are tons of different strategies, but the goal is that someone either gives you their phone number or gives you their email, and then you communicate with them at a VIP level in that capacity. So you are sharing newsletters or updates. Think about old-fashioned Christmas cards, right? Where they kind of wrote everything that happened that year. We recommend our customers do that either monthly or quarterly, just really up behind the scenes, what's happening on the ranch, what's happening with the bulls. And then you also want to share like important sale details first. So you want to email them first when the catalog goes live. You want to email them first when the videos are up. You want to email them with any sale updates. The nice thing about having an email list or even a text messaging list is if things happen such as weather and you have to move your sale, you have all of their contact information. You don't have to pick up the phone and call every single person. You already either have their cell phone number or their email. And for most people, they will check those on a more consistent basis than they will on social media. And so it gives our customers lots of peace of mind when they build an email list or when they build a text messaging list. And also, you own those lists. So if something ever happens to social media, you still have access to those. And those lists take a little bit of time to grow and develop, but it is a strategy that it almost gets sweeter with time. Like the longer you have the list, the more contacts you have on there, the better your items sell. And then it's perfect. If you have semen to offer, you already have a list for that. If you have females to sell, you already have a list for that. It is one of those things that I add a little bit of urgency with my customers. You got to be capturing some of that information, and you got to be managing your customers' information and communicating with them regularly. People don't want to be sold to. People want to have a relationship, and they want to hear about more than just buy my bowl, buy my bowl, buy my bowl. Like when you start to do that, that can like come across wrong. And so they want to know, how's it going? How was your fall grass? How did calving go? What sires are you looking at this year? All of that. It just requires more of a relationship than just a sales perspective.
Do you have a ratio that you would recommend of these are the behind the scenes, these are the information versus buy my bulls?
Yeah. So 1 out of every 4 should be a sales post. Okay. So the other 3 should add value, give information, share something. So for every 3 that do that, then you can have 1 that's like more cut to the chase, buy the bull.
Very good. And again, social media is the new shiny object, right? It is the distracting thing. But I have yet to talk to anybody who is successful in a marketing endeavor, whether that's direct-to-consumer beef or podcasting or bull sales, who will not say email is their number one most important driver of revenue. Is that true in your experience as well?
Yes. So when you think about social media, what we're trying to do on social media is sort of stand on the top of a building with a megaphone and shout. What then you're trying to do when you get someone on your email list is they are saying, I'm interested. They're raising their hand, say, I want to learn a little bit more. And so the social media is like, yell to everyone, see who raises their hand, and then nurture those people and introduce them to the product. In the marketing world, one of the phrases is your business grows as fast as your email list grows. It is a harsh reality, but the more people have raised their hand and said, tell me more, those are really the customers that are more likely to raise their hand at a sale, pull out their credit card and order semen or embryos, buy some females from you. Like those are more of the customers that they've already said, I'm interested. And so you weed out all of the people that are not. And so it's this great combination with social media and email marketing of the telling everyone from the rooftop about your offering and then taking the people who are raising their hand each time you do that and nurturing them with a little bit behind the scenes. I always say, give your email list something that no one else can do. Make it exclusive. Make people have to open the email. Give them reasons to be on that list. And if you train or teach people to open the emails, down the road when you have something to sell or you have a big deal, such as you have to reschedule your sale or whatever it may be, you've already taught them that there is value in those emails and they will get rewarded and they'll learn something, they'll find out new information or something if they open them consistently.
Okay. Yes, in the interest of full disclosure, Karoline's rebuilding the website for the Working Cows podcast, and it will include an email list going forward.
It's so cool. It's so valuable. And I think a lot of pushback is that people don't read their email. And that's just not going to be the reality with the next generation. I mean, we don't send mail. We're just not mailing things to people. We're doing it all on email. And email and text message kind of get together, but having some type of list and being able to send out or even just notify people, it's amazing. When you send out a catalogs ready email, I mean, sometimes we'll have 60 or 70% open rate. Industry standard is 18% open rate. And that people, they're so excited that they got the first look at the catalog. And there's tons of ways on email to make it exclusive. One of my favorite is when people don't put footnotes in their catalog, but they do a catalog with footnotes and they only offer it to their email list. Because I'm then if people want to know, they're opening those emails. If they want to read a little bit more about the bulls, they're opening the emails. They know, they'll do that.
Well, Karoline, we had a little bit of a technical glitch. Some power went out in the middle of it. People shouldn't know that if all of my backup plans worked together properly. So my mind has kind of also had a glitch and a reset. Is there anything we've missed? Anything else that you think is really top of the list that needs to be shared with regard to this issue of bull sales, bull sale marketing, and those things?
One of the things, and I might get myself in trouble for this, but we didn't talk a ton about print ads. And print ads, in my mind, is not the best way to spend a bulk of your marketing revenue. Marketing expense, because what we need to do and how to know that your marketing is working for you is when it's traceable. So when we can see how many people did that send to the website, how many people registered to bid from that post, all of those traceability things in marketing are so important. And so if you are doing print ads and if you have Ringmen, you need to do print ads for a lot of them. Some of them are offering digital now, but you have to spend a certain amount to get someone to the sale. So if you're going to do print ads, you need to increase the frequency and decrease the size. Because what you'd hate to do is have a half page or a full page ad and your ideal customer had -20s and they never opened the paper. That would be such a waste. But if you run the same ad for 5 weeks in a paper, the chances are that they're going to see it and have brand recognition is going to be more helpful. The other thing that I see when it comes to print is every print ad looks different. And if they are your print ads, every print ad should look very similar. If you removed your name, they should be able to say that came from X, Y, and Z ranch. Because if we think about McDonald's, we don't need it to say McDonald's, right? If we see that M, we know that that's a McDonald's. The way McDonald's is designed all looks the same or very similar. That should be your marketing too. And a lot of times what I see is people will want to run print media of any kind, and they'll let whoever is going to print it design it. And so we lack some uniformity. It's different fonts, it's different colors, it's different background photos. And it can be really hard when you're trying to have 20 some touch points. If each touch point, they're like, do you really think that's that ranch? That ad looks different. Or this time it had a bull I've never seen before, not their normal herd sires or whatever it may be. And so having consistency in your marketing, having consistency and starting early are the two most important things when you're thinking about having a successful marketing campaign.
Very good. I really appreciate that. And I've scratched the surface here today, and you guys do a lot of things through the KRose Company to help people learn the ropes with regard to marketing. So just share a little bit about what you guys have going on in that regard too.
So KRose Company is really your one-stop shop for seed stock marketing. One of the things that I always tell my clients, and I'm very serious about, is we're on your team. And I think that's a very different approach from a marketing standpoint than a lot of our competitors. And I tell them, if you forgot the donuts sale day, call me up. Like, I'll bring the donuts. Like, I will be on your team and what that looks like. And for every operation, the services we offer are very different, but the things that stay really consistent is part of what we do at KRose Company is we buy feeder calves. And so between my dad and I, we buy somewhere between 20 to 35,000 feeder calves. And so I hear directly from the commercial cattlemen on a regular basis what they're looking for, what's working, what's not working, and I'm helping them make marketing decisions. And so I'm talking to your ideal customer. I know exactly what they're annoyed about. I know exactly why so-and-so didn't show up to your sale because you forgot to send him a catalog and he went somewhere else. Like, I know exactly the feedback that you want and you're hearing. The other thing too is we really try to do it all. So I can run a conference line. I can run the online piece. We can do photos and videos. I do all of the videoing, which I really enjoy because I get to study the bulls. And so that is one of the things that helps me sell your cattle is when I get to look at them. And we do catalog design, social media. We try to be the one-stop shop, and we take less than 20 sales each season because I want to know the cattle. And so I really want to be able to study the cattle and see if I can offer you new customers and new perspective to help increase your bottom line. I don't want to just produce thousands of catalogs or travel all over the world videoing cattle. I really want to find the customers that are ready to up-level their marketing, ready to be a little uncomfortable. We do a lot of new things, and then see how we can transform and kind of build that snowball effect. And I think one of the coolest things that we do at KRose right now is we're very international. And so we're doing tons of marketing for operations in Australia and Canada. And so I'm getting an international perspective, and I'm able to help market U.S. bulls to those places because they're always asking me, what semen do I need to buy? What's up and coming? What are the American producers doing that we should produce? And so I love that piece. But the other thing is we do tons of free education. And so especially if you're just starting off, this is your first year selling bulls, or you want to, have a private treaty sale and you've never done that, we do a free class in the spring that's usually attended by like 500 or 600 seed stock producers. We do a couple of them. And I just go over what the year looked like, what worked, what didn't work. I go through, average catalog request, how much those cost, average catalog printing cost, because that can vary quite a bit. So I try to give people ideas about what the industry is doing so they know where they fit, and just share some knowledge about what I think is coming. And I love to teach. And so I really want my customers to feel empowered to know what's working and what's not. And at the end of the day, we got to add gasoline to the marketing fuel and fires that is working. And you got to put out the rest because the marketing budget is not unlimited, and I know that.
Very good. Karoline, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Very good stuff there with Karoline. Really appreciate her perspective and the experience that she brings to this. And cat's out of the bag. She's working on a new website, 7 years in. New website coming your way on the Working Cows podcast. So we'll hopefully... nothing will change, and you won't notice until you go to workingcows.net and see that it's updated. And when we get around to that, we're going to do some giveaways and help just get the word out about the podcast by giving you the opportunity to win some swag and some different things that we have available here. So coming up next on the Working Cows podcast, really excited to talk to Daniel Migalski, and he is a guy who is in Montana and doing great things with goats. And specifically, we're going to talk to him about how he has gone about reducing labor with a total grazing goat system. So lots of labor when you're grazing small ruminants generally. And when you're total grazing small ruminants, exponentially more labor. And so Daniel and his wife have found a great way to reduce that labor and achieve the goals that they have for their operation. And really excited to share this interview with Daniel, coming your way real soon on another episode of the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you then.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, Tune in next week.